A lot of people make mistakes in and confuse product market fit is finding the right customer. Your initial product is not going to be perfect. I talk about the first version, the latest version of software is the worst version of the software you've built. So it has to improve from there. And what happens is when you build a new product, you get initial attention from the innovators. I call them the shiny object syndrome people. They'll buy the latest iPhone, they'll have the 10 wireless headsets. Anything that comes out, they'll get it. They will not give you the feedback that you need to improve your product. The person who is really drowning, when you talk to them about the problem, they become passionate about the problem that they're suffering. That is your customer.
Welcome, MedTech Gurus. Today we have a fantastic guest with us, Dr. Khan Siddiqui, CEO and co-founder of HOPPR. Khan is not only a radiologist, he's also a physician entrepreneur, inventor, and former Microsoft executive who's been at the forefront of healthcare AI for more than 2 decades. He previously served as chief medical officer at Hyperfine, where he helped bring the world's first portable MRI to market, and has held leadership roles at the American College of Radiology, HIMS, or HIMSS, and the Radiological Society of North America. At Microsoft, Khan helped develop foundational healthcare technologies, including cloud-based clinical imaging and machine learning tools for Windows and Azure. He holds more than 20 patents in imaging, informatics, and AI. Today, as CEO of HOPPR, he's tackling one of the biggest challenges in medtech, scaling AI innovation in radiology by solving for fragmented data, workflow barriers, and clinical adoption. HOPPR recently received $31 million in Series A funding to scale its AI-native platform, which helps developers and health systems unlock imaging data for better diagnostics, research, and real-world use. Hey, Khan, are you ready to be our guru today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tom.
We're very excited to have you. So tell us something fun or interesting about yourself or your family so we can get to know you a little better.
I think the most latest fun thing is that I've gone through a weight loss journey, lost over 120 pounds, feel like a completely different person. Used to be an athlete when I was young, so now getting back into more fitness has been an amazing journey. My spouse is also a radiologist, so I feel her pain on a daily basis, reminds me what I'm doing and why am I doing it. So become a personal mission.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on the weight loss journey. What types of things are you doing fitness-wise?
It's all about strength training to maximize that. I love cycling. I'm an avid cyclist too, so not easy in Chicago to do it outdoors. So I have a Peloton bike that I get on, but I was always a cardio guy, not a strength trainer. So I had to kind of switch my change mindset. Hated it for the first year. Now I love it.
Yeah, exactly. I work out frequently myself, and I try to do a combination of both as well. So I tell people a body like this just doesn't come by accident, right? So Khan, as I did my research, HOPPR is really addressing some big issues in healthcare, right? How to make imaging data usable for AI innovation. What was the core insight that led you to launch the company? Can you provide us some insight there?
Yeah, Tom, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I started working in machine learning and AI like in 2004, like before people were calling it AI.
Yeah.
And very early on, we realized there's some fundamental issues. If you think of it, radiology interpretation process, right? Everybody assumes it's the detection of disease is the problem. It's not, right? We've known since 1975 that a average radiologist can find a half a centimeter lung nodule on chest X-rays within 200 milliseconds. And a small lesion on mammogram also within 200, 250 milliseconds, right? These studies were published in 1970s, right? When still in the film days. And then reinforced again with Dr. Elizabeth Kripinski's work in perception in the 90s aspect of it. So if you can find this so fast, then what's the actual problem? Actual problem really becomes is taking all the findings you're seeing in an image or in a study with thousands of images, and then synthesizing them into a communication device to talk to the clinician, which we call report, right?
Mhm.
Report is not just, regurgitating what you're seeing on the image. It actually is what we look at image, and then we, based on what we are seeing, prioritize what the clinician would know. If a same patient comes with the same disease, but the study was ordered by a primary care physician versus say oncology surgeon, my report will be very different. Because in one scenario, I'm responding to a primary care. In another scenario, I'm telling an oncological surgeon what he needs to be worried about, right? So that nuance is what creates cognitive loads, what creates time. People just assume, you start seeing things and you start saying it. That doesn't not how it works. When I'm reading a CT scan, I start with the neck, but I'm not talking about the neck first. Patient came with right lower quadrant pain, which is down in the belly, right? So I'm going to see all the stuff, but not talk about those things first. Talk about the things that are being asked for first. And then, but I have to keep all this information in my brain and synthesize them and cohesively and make sure I don't miss anything when I'm talking about it, right? So that's where the cognitive load comes in. That's where the burnout comes in the early days when we had less images, maybe detection was helping the rare things we missed. But now, because imaging volume is going up, not only that, but it's accelerating, it is becoming more important that the workflow aspect of it and the reporting aspect of it gets optimized. So that was the big insight, number one. Number two insight was that the current way of building AI models, which, get frozen after you train them to achieve certain accuracy, and you get it through the regulatory approvals, don't work the same way when they're actually deployed in production. And the reason is because our practice of medicine is very different. Depending on where you're trained, you will scan the patient differently. If you're trained at Hopkins with Elliot Fishman, you will scan a certain way. If you were trained at Stanford with somebody else, you would scan the patient differently. You have a GE scan at one place with a different proprietary reconstruction kernels. If you have Siemens scan at the place, proprietary reconstruction kernel, the image looks different. So all those differences cause changes in the performance of the model. So when actually models are deployed in clinical practice and looked at, they vary all over the place. There was a famous study recently published by Emory showing that one of the FDA-cleared models didn't perform what the claims were and in the FDA clearance were, right? They were much lower in performance, and performance varied for inpatient versus outpatient settings also in those scenarios. So we know that is different. The other thing we also don't realize is that as radiologists, we also don't have a fixed accuracy, right? We are on a spectrum. The young, inexperienced radiologist overcall things, senior experienced radiologist undercall things. It's also well known and published. So now you are on a spectrum of accuracy. Then you have a software that is in a spectrum of accuracy because of how it is happening. So let's say a software is doing high false positive in hands of a junior radiologist who also is overcalling. Suddenly you have too many false positives happening. So that doesn't work. So I started thinking about how do we do it in a way where people can optimize the models locally for their own needs, right? And that's kind of HOPPR's idea came back. Can we do a different approach where it's more focuses on continuous monitoring and really provide tools to the clinicians and as well as other AI companies to be able to quickly build AI models and generalize them faster and fine tune them for the local needs. So those were the kind of big two insights, like how do you do this in a quickly generalizable manner, and how do we focus more on the workflow aspect and what really is the problem and not just the detection aspect of it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And if I've got this right, I was listening to you thinking about, I'm in the business development world, right? And I work with a number of different clients, but it's kind of maybe similar in the sense of when I think about communicating some follow-up, if I'm communicating to the CEO, I'm writing it one way. If I'm communicating it to a territory sales representative, I'm communicating it a different way. And that takes, you're right, it takes some time. I was kind of thinking about that because how do I format this? How do I organize it? All that kind of stuff, right? So is it, do I have this right that your system's kind of not really giving me a standard format, but giving me some guideposts to think about who I'm communicating and what I'm trying to communicate? Am I heading down the right path there?
Yeah, I think what we're doing is the way we're addressing those issues is making it really, really fast and cost effective to build AI models, right? So that you can rapidly adapt to the changes that are happening. Because today, if you think of it, right, it takes 18 months to 2 years from ideation to getting product out, right? And then if you're waiting for a vendor to change something, another year before another update comes out, right? So even though, change control processes that people are applying for are there to rapidly change, but rapid change is not happening, in days or weeks, is happening in months or years. So our philosophy was like, can we provide all the tools so the local sites or the vendors can very quickly change it? Like, can we do it in a week's time frame instead of 18 months? Can we reduce the cost from 4 to 5 million to build a model down to, less than 100K, less than 10K to build a model and fine tune it, right? Then it becomes possible that you do rapid iteration on the stuff, right? So that's how we're delivering the things that we are thinking about, right? The not only identification of disease on an image, but also how do you pre-draft a report for a particular scenario, for example.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And as I mentioned in our introduction too, you recently closed a $31 million Series A deal, which, congrats on that milestone. But, many of our listeners are entrepreneurs or soon to be entrepreneurs. So what factors do you think helped you raise that amount successfully? And what advice would you share with our gurus out there preparing to get into their own capital raise?
Tom, we can have a whole podcast just on that. So it's never easy raising funds. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've had multiple companies, and I've raised significant amount of money every single time, and it's always hard, right? At the end of the day, it's all about preparation. It's all about doing your homework. I spent 3 months just preparing for a fundraise, right? What's the story we're going to tell? How are we going to tell? What metrics are people going to look for? Who are the right investors are? People don't pay enough attention to who the right people are, right? Who is going to be interested in investing? It's like when you're going to see a doctor, you won't show up a thoracic surgeon for a foot ulcer, right? You're not going to do that, right? You do your homework to see who the right it is, but people don't realize is VCs are similarly specialized. They have their own thesis on where they invest in, and you have to do a lot of homework to understand who are the right ones that would be interested in what you're talking about, what their fund stage is. If they're in the late stage of a fund, they're not going to take risks because, if they're early stage fund, they're more prone to take higher chances, then they would be able to listen to you. So all that goes into that aspect of it. Then there's practice, right? In this early stages, the investing in the team, the investing in is the problem big enough, right? Investors understand, right, that good entrepreneurs pivot to focus on what the market is asking, right? What market feedback is, and they will react to that. So the question is, can this team or this entrepreneur is able to drive that aspect of it? And the other is, is the problem big enough? And do people care about the problem that they're trying to solve? I think those become two big things. A lot of people focus on the idea of the product they've built and try to focus on that and not spend time explaining how big the problem is and what's the insight you have and why would your team is the right team to make this happen. I think that becomes a big story. And last is practice. I do 40 pitches before I pitch to the real investor that I really want the money from. Right? I would pitch to some investors that even if they said, yes, here's my money, I will say no, right? Just because you need to listen to the reactions, then you engage them. Are they reacting to you? So it's more of an art to go raise money. But obviously, you have to have your the basics right. You have to have the right problem you're trying to solve, all those fundamentals of your business correctly, thinking through first principles thinking, and then it becomes like, how do you actually go and engage and make that happen?
Yeah, I like that practice part, right? Because I've seen a number of presentations in my career, and it's really interesting, right? You can almost tell the people that have pitched it several times, right? Because if I've got this right, and I'm interested in your thoughts, you kind of boil it down so almost laser focus on your audience, but you keep it simple, but yet open-ended enough, right? So, and that is kind of an art. It's truly a sales presentation, isn't it?
Yeah. Think of it this way, right? These investors are listening to, on average, 10 to 12 pitches a day, 4 days a week minimum, right? So they're looking at hundreds. They can tell in second when you're not prepared. because when they've seen so many of them, you're trying to stand out from you not look the and they're very they're selective, right? They will say, some of the investors I talk to only make 10, 15 investments a year, so they're only picking one a month or one or two a month, right? So if you're listening to 10 a day, 5 days a week, 100 a week, 400, and you're picking one, it's a pretty interesting way to think about it, right? So if you're not prepared, you're not practiced, it is just imagine if you were listening to something again and again and again, you would pick up when somebody's not prepared.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good analogy, right? In terms of the number of recordings that I've done for the podcast. So I like that. And then, Con, if I've got this right, when I was doing my homework for this, you've mentioned that there's a number of AI imaging solutions that perform well in pilot studies, but then hit roadblocks in clinical adoption. I think you kind of referenced that it takes 18 to 24 months to start down that pathway. So, what are the types of bottlenecks that are often underestimated when trying to go from concept to real world use? Do you have any thoughts for us there?
Yeah, I think the thing we talked about, right? The right ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Today, what is with the explosion of volume of imaging that is going up and the extreme shortage of radiologists, time has become the most critical pathway, right? The ROI needs to be in time savings and direct dollar savings. And a lot of the time when you're looking at the early AI products that came out, it actually added time, because now you're looking at all these circles on the image and to figure out what it is, right? So you're spending more time trying to understand that stuff rather than less time aspect of it. So I think a lot of the early focus was on detection, as I said, right, which is not really a time problem, right? If you're doing it in less than a second, anything you add to it just adds more time to it. So maybe, in the 2000s, when these are, late 2000s, when this all started, 2016, 2017, imaging volume was not as high as today. And probably that was fine, right? That you could find something and it would be enough ROI. So you didn't miss the one cancer, in a year or something like that. But now it's all about time, right? So the more time you add in doing something, it actually impacts negatively impacts, right? So that's the main reason the adoption has not been, that we haven't seen the adoption and people hit into a bottleneck around that aspect of it. I think it's changing now. The newer tools that are coming in, they're addressing time, addressing ROI, a direct ROI aspect of it. And it's been very interesting. I mean, if you think of it, right, some of the tools that have had the penetration, Viz AI and other for stroke detection, it's been more the communication piece of it, like reducing the care lag that happens has what's driven the ROI. And it's not I found the stroke. Most of the time we know patient has a stroke because of symptoms. You're looking for, is it acute or not? Can patient be treated or not? And in that aspect of it, it's all about, time to needle, right? So can you reduce the time when the catheter is put in a patient to treat the stroke? And those communication tools in combination of detection has reduced that, time to needle from symptoms to time to needle, and has created the impact that we are seeing. And those ROIs are then, leading to a better adoption. So I think now anybody building AI tools has to focus on time as an ROI because of extreme shortage of radiologists that is happening.
Yeah, I like that a great deal because, as you can probably tell, I've been in this business a long time by my what I call my lighter blonde hair. So, and workflow is really an important piece, right? And through that, I think you also gain some clinical trust, right? So, you've kind of touched on, that if that's missing, that can be a challenge. So, just to back it up a step, what are some of the key elements that you think founders should prioritize when they really want to build that truly adoptable technology? Do you have any thoughts for us there?
I do. So I think the fundamental thing that, for an entrepreneur to do is to make sure what they're doing is touching their inner why. Like why? Like for my inner why is I like to solve problems that people I love have and create a social impact at the same time. So I'll tell you my story. Like I've crisply, when this decision in my head became very clear that I need to go do this, So I have two boys. They're both adults now, but they were in high school and middle school at that time. We have a boys text channel. So I'm sitting in my basement office where I am right now. My younger one's sitting in the kitchen. My elder one's sitting in his room on the second floor. And we hear the garage door open. Then my wife's coming back from her work. And the elder one texts on the voice channel, "How is mom's mood? Should I come down, give her a hug, or stay in my room?" And the younger one responds, "Stay in your room." And it hit me that a radiology profession is impacting my kids because how mom's coming completely tired with stress from the work. It's like this became, I mean, the people I love are getting impacted by this. And that kind of turned my thing on. So that's number one, right? You need to align with your inner why, because then you'll feel the passion to go get them. And entrepreneurship is not an easy thing, right? A lot of times it's a lonely journey and with a lot of stress. And to do that, it has to have your inner why aligned. Number two is you need to understand the problem better than anybody else. That's the only way you'll have the insights that others have missed. So focus on the problem. A lot of people focus on the idea they built or the tool they tell, and they try to figure out, how do I go do this? But they don't spend time understanding the problem. Third is the team. The first five people really define the culture of the team. So be deliberate on who you hire initially, right? Because that is how the rest of the team will operate. If you're not hiring people with integrity, with high EQ, passion, will to win, just get it done no matter what type of attitude, you will see degrade. I had learned a long time ago, somebody said that, uh, A players hire A players, B players hire C players because they're afraid of losing their job, right? You need to make sure your first five people are A players, and and then sign of A players, they want to bring more people in to teach them to get even A plus, right? So A player hire A plus folks because they want to grow in themselves and improve on. So they be intentional about that. So those are the three most important things. There are three other things too. You always need to build for scale up front, right? If you do any kind of short circuit, if you're trying to build technological solution, when a time comes to scale, then you'll be stuck in such a tech debt, and then you'll dissatisfy customers and you lose confidence from them if you're not able to scale with them. You have to have a go-to-market strategy. You can't just show up and then we'll go figure it out how to sell it. You have to have that aspect of it. And the last really is obsession with the user. So you have to really understand the user's perspective. I believe in getting something out in the user's hand before you are, think it's polished and ready to go, right? Don't wait for that, because you won't know until you get it out in user's hand what are the things you're not thinking about. Those are the 6 things I think about are important for success for entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that summary, and thank you for that. And first of all, you brought a smile to my face because my family, the kids all have the channel as well, so that was spot on for sure. But I also like the team, right? I want to zero in on that for a minute because I find that when you do bring A players in, when you've got individuals that know more about you or the CEO as a particular topic, it really kind of elevates all those boats, right? Because you're giving them that opportunity to do what they do, and then my experience has been it kind of elevates everybody else around them. Is that what you're suggesting here?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. They always hire for things you don't know, right? So, or you have deficiencies in.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. So, Con, swinging over to HOPPR for a second, if I've got this right, HOPPR focuses on solving for fragmented data and disconnected tools, two issues that really plague innovation, especially at the system level for some of these centers. Can you help us with the real world impact of those limitations? And maybe more importantly, how does your system and platform address them?
Let me summarize what we do, right? So HOPPR's platforms designed to accelerate AI development. And to do that, you need certain components. Number one, you need data. So we have petabytes of data that we've licensed through health systems and radiology practice across the United States, that we do the de-identification and make it ready for training. Number two is you need to have large pre-trained models that are trained unsupervised, that can be fine-tuned for downstream tasks. Otherwise, you need mass amount of data to train any model. By doing a pre-training on a large set of data, then fine-tuning only requires small amount of data set to for your particular downstream task. So that reduces the time to actually build the final model. Then all the tools to be able to do fine-tuning, to be able to do data navigation, understanding data labeling, data balancing, understanding, balancing across modalities, balancing across demographics of the patient so that you're building a generalized enough model. And then tools to be able to validate, test, and deploy these models. And the last thing we do is last mile entry. As I said, right, it's the report synthesis. So we have tools that take the findings from the AI model that you have built and get it straight into any of the reporting packages that exist in the market today. So that's kind of how it's a platform. So we don't build the end product. We don't have a user interface that radiologists will use. We are, think of like Anthropic's, API, and where you can actually build your models and deploy in your own application. My philosophy always was the AI should be native within the application we already use and the workflows we already deploy, not something that you now get distracted by another application have to use. Radiologists are already using the Epic, using their packs, using a reporting system, using the browser for other things, and then scheduling and communication. They already have 5-6 apps open. You don't want a seventh one distracting them, right? You want those existing ones to become AI enabled. So that's what HOPPR provides to be able to do that.
Gotcha. So it's really more of a, and hopefully this isn't an oversimplification, but it sounds like it's more of a back room and in the background kind of operation that you're using to help bring this all together in an efficient sort of way. Do I have that right?
That is exactly right. So by doing that, what we've done is our longest training job on our infrastructure has been 13 hours, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
So that's the longest that have been. A typical runs are 20 minutes to train a model, right? Time takes then get data preparation, validation, verification. That's what takes then weeks to get done. But the actual training happens very, very fast on the platform. And that's what, like some of our customers have trained 22 models in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Which is unheard of. Like at RSNA, we were live training. We did train 35 models during the show floor, during the conference that was happening, which was like insane.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Yeah, that really is remarkable. Yeah, for sure. But with that, right, when you're working with some of these other systems and other companies, right, system integration, governance, and ongoing upkeep sometimes are afterthoughts with certain companies. So how should startups and developers, and maybe you can help us with a lesson here, how should they think about these operational factors earlier in their build and then scale in that process? Do you have any thoughts or guidance for us there?
Yeah, it's much easier to do these from day one than try to do afterwards because it's really hard to retrofit this, right? So if you, like for HOPPR, we become a component of software as a medical device. So like if somebody wants to take an AI model through the FDA or the EU MDR regulations, they'll have to provide data provenance, they have to provide how the models were trained, all that aspect of it. So we become the hardware analogy, right? If you're building an MRI scanner, the manufacturer of the scanner has to have built the whole thing under an ISO 13485 regulation. So even though they're not registering, they're not selling the scanner, but the manufacturing a component of a device has to go through the same regulation, or the vendor of commercialization has to make sure they've done all the testing and validation of those components, right? So that means from day one, we have to make sure our platform is built on ISO 13485 because our customers would need that provenance and data and documentation for how it was done. Number one. Number two is you need to have all your security things thought through, right? Your SOC 2 compliance, high trust, HIPAA addressed, all those aspects of it identified. That takes time to build and get things done, right? So, but if you haven't thought of it day one, then trying to fix afterwards becomes much more challenging, and the tech debt's much harder to do. So, if you made a decision to go into healthcare as a software vendor, then you have to address these things from day one. Just understand: are you going to be regulated by the FDA or the EUMDR? They need to make sure from day one you address those. You're going to be handling protected health information. They need to make sure you have proper procedures on PHI handling. You're able to sign BAAs. You have the SOC 2 and high trust certification, all the stuff thought through. I mean, it takes time to get all this stuff done, but if you don't start from day one, you're not going to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really helpful. And from what I hear from the FDA, I'm kind of interested in your response to this. I may put you on the spot a little bit, but it seems to me that I'm getting feedback that the FDA has made it a little easier by making these benchmarks, if you will, a little more readily available and out there, so you can start that process earlier. Is that what you're experiencing?
Yeah, it's much easier now. Remember,
Hmm.
FDA doesn't dictate anything. FDA just says that show us that what you're saying you're doing, you're actually doing,
Right.
right? So you have to define those processes. But a lot of
Yeah.
time, what people get stuck into, they hire consultants who come in with some prescribed way of how to do things, and then now you are learning a new process because some consultant said this is how you should be doing it. But if you know how you're going to do this and you thought through how you're going to show software provenance, you're going to show that you're actually designing to specifications and validating and testing it, and you show the traceability of that whole process, you can do however you want to do as long as you can satisfy those requirements, right? So I learned this when I was at Microsoft because we had some consultants and they said we're building a software as a medical device, and they would come and say this is how you need to do software development, and I was like, you can't be telling Microsoft how to do software development. Like we've been doing this. Our Windows is used by NSA. Like what are you talking about? Why would Microsoft change their software development process because this? So then I talked to some of my FTA friends, and they said like we would love to know how Microsoft does this. We don't know. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, that's great. So we just had to translate Microsoft speak into what FDA terminology they use. And that's all
Hmm.
we did. We didn't change a single process internally. And that kind of gave me this insight. So it's not about them dictating something for us to do. It is all about you have thought through the process yourself and you're documenting it the right way. And then when time comes from an audit point of view or certification point of view, you're able to communicate that properly and have thought through it. And that led to when I started Higgy from day one, we had last 5-6 years of audit at zero non-conformance, right? Same thing with Hyperfine. Like when you've thought through these, you're able to get through. I remember I was at a conference and one of the FDA folks showed up and said that one of the best submissions we've seen is from Hyperfine as
Well,
but when you've thought through this, done it multiple times, we have an amazing team that have done this. There's hundreds of, right now on our team, we've done over 309 submissions combined.
wow, that's fantastic.
So that
So,
experience helps.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And maybe it can help out here too, because you as mentioned, you've been a serial entrepreneur and a radiologist. So when you're looking at opportunities, how do you evaluate whether an innovation is likely to survive that pilot to practice journey? Do you have any thoughts for us there?
That's a very interesting question, Tom. So again, for me, it has to align with my inner why. It has to be
Mhm.
something like everybody asked me at Microsoft, like one of the things our AI models were worked on were Xbox Connect. And it was like gaming console, like, you're a radiologist, what are you talking about? I was like, listen, 2 weeks before that call that I got from that team, my wife was scolding me that little kids are watching TV and playing video games and I'm not getting them out to exercise. And here somebody's calling them, they're going to make video games more physically playable. I was like,
So, Khan, you've been a serial entrepreneur and a CEO and a radiologist. I'm just kind of curious, how do you evaluate whether a technology or an innovation is going to survive that pilot to practice journey? Do you have any insights for us there?
yeah, Tom, that's a great question. So again, it's all about inner why, right? So like, does it align with the inner why? So I'll give you an example, right? Everybody says that as a radiologist, the algorithm that you work on in Microsoft, and ended up getting using Xbox Connect, and it's like gaming console as a radiologist. What do you? How did that happen? So for me, it was like 2 weeks before I got the call from that team to work on AI for Xbox Connect. My wife was scolding me that the kids are not exercising all the day watching TV and playing video games. And then suddenly somebody calls me and says, we'll make video games more active. It was 2 second decision for me because I just had the problem at home that I need to go figure out how to solve. That's number one aspect of it, right? First of all, does the problem exist? Does it hit your inner why that you want to go solve it? Some people have otherwise, and it needs to align with it. Then it's all about product market fit, right? Is the product the right way to address the problem you're thinking about? And can you convince the people? Right? A lot of time you're building a brand new category, right? Though I've done a lot of these things in which what I'm bringing in the market is completely new category. Nobody's asking for it. They want the faster horse and I'm building a car, right? So how do you actually communicate to show them like, hey, the problem is going from destination A to B. Here's a much more efficient way to do that aspect of it, right? So product market fit from that point of view, does the problem big enough? Does it exist? And is your solution going to solve that problem, even though maybe a brand new category of doing it? The third where a lot of people make mistakes in and confuse product market fit is finding the right customer for the initial out. Your initial product is not going to be perfect. I talk about the first version, the latest version of software is the worst version of the software you've built, right? So it has to improve from there. So that means the analogy I use is, let's say you've built a brick and somebody has hair on fire. That'll take that brick to douse the fire. You need to find the customer who has hair on fire, believes in the value you're bringing in, and is dousing their hair fire from the brick that you've built. Now you learn that, oh, you need to actually build a fire extinguisher to go address that problem, but your initial brick, so that's understanding that piece of it. And what happens is when you build a new product, you get initial attention from the innovators. I call them the shiny object syndrome people. They'll buy the latest iPhone. They'll have the 10 wireless headsets. Anything that comes out, they'll get it, right? They'll lease a car every year type of thing, right? They'll just buy it, but they never use the product. They'll just, because they want the shiniest thing, latest things out there, they'll do it. But they will not give you the feedback that you need to improve your product. The person who is really drowning, when you talk to them about the problem, they become passionate about the problem that they're suffering. That is your customer. And you need to make sure that customer is helping you generate the evidence that'll convince the early majority. So the early adopters are the ones that believe in your value, have the hair on fire, are not looking for evidence, but want to generate the evidence with you, the ROI with you. If somebody says, what's the ROI of this using this? They're not your early adopter. That is your early majority, and you need to not spend too much time doing that. I can give an example of, one of our early sales folks had an academic center, very interested in working with HOPPR, and we had released our chest X-ray foundation model. And I asked, what's your X-ray chest report turnaround time? They said 21 minutes. Like, you don't have a problem. Like, are you hiring any radiologists? Do you have a short staff? Like, no. They were not hiring any in this day and age, when there are 2,500 radiology jobs opening and you're not hiring anybody new, you don't have a problem. Mm-hmm. So let's not waste time on a customer that doesn't have a problem, that will not see the value, even though they may be interested in what you're doing, but you don't have the immediate need. The hair is not on fire, and they're not going to generate the evidence. If the report around 21 minutes, how much improvement are you going to do? Whereas as a health system in Wisconsin, that is just report turnaround time is 10 days. We will definitely show and return on investment on that aspect of it, right? So that's where we focus on, and that's how we do. So those are the things to think about, right? Number one is inner why. Number two is product market fit. Number three is figuring out your commercial strategy. And initially, it'll be brute force commercial strategy till you figure out what it is. What it is that the value that you're bringing that resonates with everybody.
I really like that, right? Because as you were talking about that, I was thinking it takes a little bit of courage too, right? To be able to walk up that customer, number one, and say, well, it's not the right fit. Or when you do find that perfect customer that's going to give you that feedback, you've got to be very open and have that communication. Yeah. Am I heading down that right path with that one?
That is exactly right.
Yeah. It seems like a little bit nerve-wracking, but at the end of the day, I would think the lessons learned are so much more valuable because you made yourself perhaps a little more vulnerable. Is that what you found?
I'll give you a HOPPR example, right? When we started, we thought we would be an API-only platform, right? Because we didn't need the user interface, and we thought our customers were going to be all other AI companies, medtech companies building AI products. We launch our product like that, right? With an API, SDK, no user interface. You can open your IDE development environment and do it. And, with our customers, going to be all developers and engineers at, medtech companies, AI companies. Then the calls I started getting were from radiology practices and health systems that they want to do their own models. I was like, what do you mean you want to do their own models? It's like, our hair's on fire. We can't wait for the vendors. We want to be able to do it ourselves. Like, but you need the brick we've built requires an engineer to be able to use it. How do you have PhDs? Like Mayo Clinic has PhDs. They can build their own model. Stanford can build their own model. What about everybody else, right? They don't have it. So that led to, for us, really thinking through, okay, fine, now how do we address this market that is calling us that they have this problem? There's hair on fire, and they're calling us inbound because we are not reaching out to those folks.
Wow.
And that led to us creating our AI Foundry, which is a low-code way of training model. You don't need a PhD to build an AI models now, and launched at RSNA, right? That was the immediate reaction. Like, we built the brick, and now we have the fire extinguisher based on what we heard from our early customers.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So Khan, this really seems like an exciting time for HOPPR. So what does the future hold, and where are you and your team going from here?
I mean, future is really exciting. To be honest, I'm reminded every day by my wife all the problems that I need to go solve, right? So there's a whole problem set that we need to go do. I think we've released our chest X-ray model. We've released a mammography model. We'll be doing our chest CT foundation model later this quarter, and finish out all the modalities. I'm really focused on creating the impact of the patient at the end of the day, right? If you're not serving the patient, if the patient is not the first person you're thinking about, you're not solving the right problem. We build a platform more from a general medical imaging point of view, meaning, going to other ologies, the cardiology, and there's a lot of interest from surgical videos. How do you think about optimizing AI for video use for surgical purposes? So I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth in this space. There's a lot of interest from international customers who want to do that. We've been focusing on the US market right now because that's where we want to get our beachhead going. As an entrepreneur, you have to say 1,000 no's before you say yes. You stay focused on where you're doing, and then you scale as your growth trajectory happens. So I think that's what it is. Future is really exciting for us in this space. We will keep reacting to customer needs, building solution tooling to make this easier. My ultimate goal is, can we go to a codeless way of doing this, where a radiologist says, I have this problem, I'm tired of this, I need this automated. The way you can use Cloud Code to do stuff, can we have a similar experience building AI models for clinical use?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So, Khan, first of all, I'd like to just acknowledge and thank you for the time and insights that you brought to us today as our guru. If somebody wants to learn more, is there a social media? Are you on LinkedIn, or is there a website? How do we learn more about what HOPPR's up to?
Absolutely. HOPPR's website is www.hoppr, spelled as HOPPR.ai. You can reach us and contact through there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn and respond pretty actively over there. And whole HOPPR team is active on LinkedIn also. So we're all available anytime, but reach out to us.
We will certainly do that and follow what you and your team are up to. So once again, Khan, thank you so much. It was a delight. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks, Tom. It was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to MedTech Gurus. I am Sylvester Harris, your MC. If you want to learn more about Tom and his consulting services, you can go to www.pctmedical.com or email Tom at tom@pctmedical.com. Now, I can be reached at Sylvester Harris, that's SylvesterHarris 5048@gmail.com. And I'd be pleased to discuss any voiceover work that you may want for your company or broadcast. Hey, thanks so much for listening, and catch us on the next episode of MedTech Gurus.